Hi, everyone. We are here today to celebrate the publication of Problem Hunter by Craig Calder. Congratulations, Craig. How are you feeling?
Thank you, Jess. I'm feeling great, actually. It's been a long road to get to this point. Almost like I was ready in, I think, January, but a few more things to do, and it's almost hard to believe that it's actually here.
Yeah, it can feel kind of surreal. You've put a lot of work into your book. Do you want to tell viewers about your book?
Sure. This is kind of a book I wrote as something I wish I'd read 20 years ago when I was starting out in my career. And instead of looking at problems as things to avoid or try and work your way around or to not deal with them as you possibly would have, take them as opportunities to learn about yourself, to learn about your career, and use them to leap forward. In the early days of my career, I was looking to avoid problems as much as possible and having other people tell me how to manage them. And, I was really good at spotting problems and helping other people fix them. But the early days of my career, I was not really doing much work solving the problems. And what I've realized in my life is that's where the most growth that you have as a person, it's where the most growth you have in your professional capacity comes. It's through doing the struggle. It's doing the reps. It's going to the gym for your mind in a way. And I wish I'd been told that message years and years ago. Instead of looking to avoid things, actually run towards them and use them as opportunities and springboards to have an amazing life and career and kind of evolve yourself continually as a person.
Terrific. So now that viewers have heard about your book, I'm just going to read your bio so we can hear a little bit more about you. So, Craig Calder is the author of Problem Hunter, Become the Most Valuable Person in Any Organization. He is a former EY partner, an artist, and founder of ThinkClear Group, a consulting practice that supports leaders and teams to develop problem-solving cultures and capabilities. Craig is a chartered accountant and holds a business degree from RMIT University. How long was it between having the kind of realization about the way you approach problems to thinking, this is a book, I'm going to write a book?
I think it was about 3 years ago when I started to think, there might be something in this. And it was mainly I wanted to write down and capture all the things that I'd learned. So I guess I was probably 7 years into a journey of hitting rock bottom in life and going, well, obviously I'm not doing a great job at solving some problems in my own life and career. What do I need to do about that? And so I went on this journey of taking any possible job opportunity. I founded my own consulting business. I became an artist. Anything that was looking like the solving part of problem solving, I jumped into. And so what I learned from that was, look, there's so many people that I think are in the same boat as me. You find your way into a career or a job and you do that for a while. In fact, you do it perhaps too long. And then all of a sudden the problem solving part of your brain starts to turn off. And so I wanted to find a way to capture that for me and also for others. And so that was probably about 3 years ago. And so I did some research on the back of that and was dived into the neuroscience of problem solving. I dived into the psychology of it. And then about 18 months ago, decided this is a path that I reckon I should do.
Had you always wanted to write a book?
No. The short answer is no. But I guess as I got older, there was sort of a little bit of a fascination. Maybe I could write something. And thankfully I have. It's definitely a life-changing experience.
Really?
Yeah, well, you've written 2 books. I've now written 2. It is a life-changing experience in a lot of ways because the process of writing, what I learned, the process of writing something and trying to be coherent in your thoughts and coherent in a story, that takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of thinking. And that discipline of writing, thinking, revising, that you really start to learn a lot about yourself. I learned a heap about myself through this process.
Yeah. And we had, I believe it was 16 book coaching sessions, where we kind of nutted out, thrashed out the different parts of your book. And it was really enjoyable. And I would always say to you, this is such immediate, like grab worthy. Like this chapter could be a speech or an article because you have a great turn of phrase
Oh, thank you. Look, without your coaching, there wouldn't be a book. And as you know, the mental battles I had to go through to even put pen to paper were significant.
Yeah.
Part of my story is that through high school, I came about this close to failing HSC English. It was my worst top subject by a country mile. I was a numbers and artistic person, and writing and expressing myself, that wasn't what I did. And so I kind of carried this little belief in my mind that you can't possibly write because you almost failed English. And so my early career was find a way to simplify complex things, put it into PowerPoint, use pictures, graphs, diagrams to communicate. And that got me through, and even got me through to being a partner in a consulting firm. I didn't have to write many things. And so when I had to start turning my mind to writing something that ended up being 70 odd thousand words, there was that part of that belief in my mind going, oh, hang on, remember, you can't do this.
Yeah.
And so having someone like you to coach me through that process, but also doing small things to unwind that belief and replace it with a new one, was some of the work I had to do early on. And it was part of the reason why I actually wrote this other book. I wrote a book for my daughter's 16th birthday. And that was, in a way, evidence for me that I could actually write a book, because I had done one, and then I could turn my mind to write something else. So it's amazing what your mind does to stop it from doing the hard work of learning and developing by creating these beliefs that stop you. But when you focus on finding a way around them, all of a sudden the doors of change, the doors of growth will sort of come your way. And that's kind of in the book.
When you find your author voice as well, I feel that that's a real unblocking. And because you were writing quite furiously, I think you sent me a text message with like a test tube and how many words you got to, and it was like, you know, you'd done 50,000, and you were writing a lot every week.
I was. I think I rewrote the book about 6 times. Every chapter turned around about 6 times. And you're right, finding a way to express yourself when you haven't actually done that in long form. There is a process you need to go through. And I mistakenly thought writing a book was a linear thing where you start the introduction and you finish at the acknowledgement at the end. And it actually doesn't work that way. There's an exploration that I had to go through to look at the concepts, look at the chapters, find the stories that kind of brought it to life, matched it with data. And then when 2 chapters were sort of compared together, do they work? Oh, no, okay, they're actually 1 chapter now. So there's an evolution to writing that I didn't expect. I thought it was just a linear thing. But the art of writing, it's almost like a painting in a way. You start with an idea and you might sort of move in one direction and think, okay, no, that's a bit dark. I might move back a little bit here. So I think what I've learned is that the art of writing is more similar to the art of painting than it is a linear process that you might expect otherwise.
I also love in your book how you say that creativity flourishes with restraints. There must be some kind of restraints. Do you want to explain that? Because I find that really interesting.
So your mind is like a supercomputer in many, many ways. And so the less constraints you give it, like, you know, time is a constraint, or resources, or, you know, inputs that you might have that are available, anything you can do that restricts the amount of work your brain has to do to figure out something, that makes it a lot easier. It's kind of counterintuitive in a way. So if you've only got 3 hours to do something and you need to write 1,500 words, go, okay, I've got 3 hours, 1,500 words. What do I need to do to make that happen? Whereas if you said, I want you to write something and give it to me whenever, all of a sudden that becomes a much, much bigger challenge. And to get something done, you almost need to self-impose constraints. Like, all right, I'm going to get this done within the next day, and I'll turn around 2,000 words. So constraints actually help spur creativity and make it more efficient to be creative. Now, there are limits. I mean, if you box something too tight, then it's difficult. But you need to have some.
Yeah, no, I was like, that's really true, and it's really interesting. Why do you think most people have a tendency to shrink away from our problems, whether it's at work or at home?
Look, the single biggest reason is that little thing inside of us called fear. And it drives us to move away from the things that we feel uncertain or have this ambiguity around what we need to do. So from an evolutionary perspective, the way our biology is wired, if we stand still and we feel that we need to move and we're not, that creates an enormous amount of fear. And the bigger a problem appears to be, the more we feel like we're in the middle of the savannah, stuck, not moving and exposed. And so we feel fear. And so when we feel that fear and we don't have a way to manage our mind through those emotional challenges, we look for the fastest way out. And as a result of that, you either jump to a solution, or if you see a problem coming and you go, no, I do not want to be in that environment, you will find a path around it. And so fear is the biggest one that stops us. And it was good from an evolutionary point of view. It kept us safe. But in a workplace and in the environment we live in now, there are so many problems that actually we don't need to be scared of. And so it's almost unwinding that natural biological reaction of being in a situation where you don't feel comfortable and learning how to deal with that. And the people that I studied who are really, really good at solving any problem and would jump into it and use it to leapfrog in their careers, they manage their fear beautifully.
Okay. What are the key mindset shifts we need to become a problem hunter?
Well, I think the first thing is that running towards a problem, which sounds counterintuitive, is actually the best strategy. In a workplace, one of the most valuable attributes of any worker is initiative. So initiative is the number one factor that drives promotion decisions in any workplace. And, you know, it's even more, it's twice as much as doing a good job. So you can do a good job, but if someone next to you does a good job and takes initiative to find and solve problems that others shy away from, they will always stand out. And so the first belief, or the first common practice to overcome, is don't avoid them, run towards them, because that will be the fastest path to have a great career. Now, you might have to go through a little bit of difficulty to start with, but it will always end better for you to do that.
Why does it stink to be a turd observer, Craig?
Now, that chapter came from a conversation I had with a former client of mine named Andrew Henry. And I was interviewing him for the book. And we just set up the interview, and it was the first question I asked, and it turned to gold. I said, look, what frustrates you the most about people in your team when it comes to dealing with problems? What is the one thing that if you could change, what would that be? And without hesitation, he said, look, it's when people come into my office, they sit down, big smile on their face, and say, boss, I've got a problem. And then they describe it in eloquent detail, what the problem is, and they point to it. He said it's just like they come in with a plate that's got a bit of dog excrement on it, and they put it on my desk, and they point at it, they tell me how bad it is and how much it smells, and go, there you go. And then they walk out without any sort of initiative to say, look, it is big, it's difficult, what can I do to help? Or here's what my thoughts are around it, or I've got a plan, what do you reckon? They think the value that they come and deliver is, I've told you about a problem, and that's enough. And it's a real misconception that raising a problem without having something on the other side of it to say, look, I've thought about it, I reckon we can do 1, 2, 3, or, I think these people together could come up with a path to solve it, or something else. But showing some initiative to say, look, I've got a problem. Yes, it is a big problem, and here's a path or an idea. What do you reckon? That's actually way more valuable because it shows some initiative, the thing that makes people stand out. But just raising a problem without some sort of idea of how to solve it, it creates then that fear, that difficulty for the boss. And interestingly, in the research I was doing for the book, it goes everywhere. So that I saw this wonderful video of Barack Obama, former US president.
I was just about to mention him.
He was giving some advice to younger people. He said, look, he's seen at all levels, of all organizations, at all levels. He said, people describe problems in eloquent detail, tell me why they can't possibly be solved, and don't take any further action. He said, what I'm really looking for is someone who says, I got this. That's the kind of people we want working in all levels of government. And so it was, in a way, the same thing my client Andrew was telling me. He said, if some people would just take a bit more initiative and thought about it for 10, 15 minutes rather than just race up and say, we've got a problem, that would be a lot more valuable to me than someone who just gives me a problem for me to think.
Oh, yeah. It's some people, dare we say, enjoy the describing of problems.
Look, and I was one of those people. I was trained as a consultant to find, describe the gnarliest problems that could impact a business. And I would also come with an idea of here's how you can solve it, not me, here's how you can solve it. So I was kind of a little bit along the path away from a turn observer, but I still didn't do the work myself.
Yeah.
And I thought it was pretty cool for a long time, but I didn't realize just how damaging it was to my own brain and my own mental health by not doing the solving part.
Very interesting. Another term I love in your book that you coined is a judgment junkie. What is a judgment junkie?
Well, yes, we all have that little inner voice, that monologue that kind of travels with us as we go through life. Some people call it the critical inner voice. I call it the judgment junkie because what I find in my own inner monologue, it judges everything I do with some harsh words. And it's not uncommon for that to happen. And what happens is that if you let that part of your mind run loose and believe what it says, then it will really prevent you from doing some difficult but amazing things as well, because it tries to keep you safe. It's that other part of your mind that works in tandem with fear. It says, well, hang on, that's going to be dangerous. Don't do that. But it's really just protecting you from some illusionary, emotional self-harm that you might do to yourself. So the more you realize that inner monologue has a purpose, but it's not always right, then you can find your way around and say, look, thanks for the heads up, but actually this is something I need to do, something I want to do, and it's something I can do.
Yeah.
And you can learn to quiet that voice so it doesn't stop you from doing things that you really need to.
Because what's the worst thing that can happen if we try to solve a problem and we can't?
Well, there's not really much that's bad, really. In a workplace, unless you're dealing with safety issues, everything else is manageable. If you're dealing with health and well-being of people, then yeah, absolutely, you need to manage the problems with there incredibly well. But everything else really doesn't impact a life. It just impacts your ego. It might impact your career a little bit, but that's not, tragic. In fact, you learn a lot more through the mistakes you make and develop than you ever would just doing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah. And even if we are seen to fail at work, surely that's preferable from having done nothing.
Yeah, and failure is an interesting one. People think failure is terminal. But actually, if you frame it in a way that, look, this didn't work out, these were the things I did, the environment did this, I did that, here's what I've learned out of it, that's the way to go forward from that. Failure really is just data. It's just feedback. And the way you choose to interpret it, the way you choose to learn from it, actually determines how you progress. And in fact, from a interviewing perspective, there's always a question of, tell me about your biggest failures. What have you not done well?
Yes.
There's always a question. And so in a way, if you don't have an answer saying, oh, I've never screwed up, well, you haven't really tried hard. What have you not been learning? Like, have you not been paying attention? So finding difficult things and working out your own strengths and the things that you need to learn is actually really helpful for your career. It's not harmful.
No. Yeah. Now you have made these amazing insight cards to go with your book, which was beautifully designed by Bettina Kaiser. Just outstanding. This is the first time I've ever seen an author produce a deck of cards, and I love them. Can you please, and this is an earlier prototype that you gave me with the book. Can you tell viewers about the cards and how they can be used?
Yeah, so what I wanted to do is simplify the 72,000 words in the book down to 72 cards. And there's 3 ideas within the book that those cards deal with. So the first idea is in trying to widen and improving the way you look at problems is the first step to becoming better at solving them. And so in the book, there's a section in there called perspective, and the cards that are in the deck that you have are all of the cards that deal with your perspective intelligence, which is something that I developed as part of the research for the book. And so the simple concept is that most people have a fixed way of looking at a problem. They're an obstacle, like I was. It was an obstacle. It's a thing to fill in, move out of the way, get rid of. But actually, a lot of other people see them as massive opportunities. Exactly the same circumstance. They just look at it differently. And so the people that I studied who are really good at problems had the widest possible lens as to what they could be. And so the first of the three ideas in those cards is, well, what are all the perspectives you can have around problems? And if I'm particularly strong in one area, like I see them as obstacles, what's the opposite? How can I develop that? So the idea is that it builds your self-awareness around your own biases, I think, for problems, and tries to stretch you a little bit to say, well, maybe I could look at that differently, and what would that do for me? So that's the first idea. The second idea was there's about 10 biases. In fact, there is 10 cognitive biases that really undermine our ability to solve problems in a constructive, creative, and thoughtful way. And they are resident in everything that we do. And so the second idea in those pack of cards is there's 10 biases I've simplified down to one little card each. And so if you're in a meeting or if you're thinking about something yourself, you can pull them out and go, hang on, am I thinking about this in a way that's not helpful? For example, I might have spent some money on something. Oh, no, I don't want to give that up because, I don't want to waste that money. It's called a sunk cost bias. But actually, you might be preventing yourself from making the right decision because you don't want to waste something. So those cards are there to help unblock biases that might appear either in your own thinking, but also if you're in a meeting.
Yeah.
And the last idea in there is the three-step process I've got for solving a problem. So find the reason, work out what the result you want, and then find the best response to get there. I've created a number of cards that unpack ideas that can help you find the right problem to solve and make sure it is a problem you want to solve. Find the right result that you need that's proportionate to the problem, but also not too conservative, so you're wasting an opportunity. And the third thing is, well, once you're in that space between, I've got a problem, I need to find a solution, what's the bit in the middle?
Yep.
I've got a lot of cards there to help inspire your creativity, make sure that you're looking at problems from all different angles to find the best solution, and do that in a way that your mind can operate with quickly, not have to do too much work to get a concept. So that's what the third idea is in those cards. So let's widen your perspective, sidestep all these hidden biases that you might have, and then there's a whole pile of cards to help you understand a problem, figure out what to do about it, and get there quicker.
Amazing. And you can use them, like have them on your desk just to remind you, or you can use them in a workshop setting. Very cool. So your book is completed, out in the world as of today. What's next for Craig Calder?
So the ideas in the book, I think, could come to life for people. So I have a couple of half-day masterclasses that I've developed that bring some of these ideas to life. I have structured coaching programs to help an emerging leader who wants to get better at solving problems to elevate their career or fast track it. There's a single coaching program over 6 weeks. And if you're a leader of a team and you think your team is perhaps a bit resistant around problems, pushing back a little, they could do with some help to run towards them. There's a 10-week structured coaching program to turn them from pushing away to taking more initiative. And you do that over a number of 1-hour sessions each week that progressively improves people's capacity to find and solve problems themselves. So there's a number of opportunities for me to work with people, and I'm really keen to do that. The two masterclasses, one is around creative problem solving, which is one of the pain points people have told me, that they wish they were more creative. And actually we are, just haven't learned how to access that. So it's a half-day workshop to do that. And the other one is around collaboration for outcomes. In any problems, in any uncertainty, working with people who may have different agendas or perhaps different pain tolerances when it comes to the emotional difficulty of being in ambiguity or being in the unknown. There's a half-day class to help people learn how to be in that environment, coach people through it better, so you get better outcomes faster.
Amazing. Terrific. And what's your website so people can find you?
It's www.thinkcleargroup.com.
Amazing. Congratulations, Craig. This is such a wonderful book, and it's been awesome working with you.
Same. It's been wonderful, Jess. Thank you.